If you are listening to this podcast, send me a tweet or a comment and say, "Hey Jeff, I thought that Alitalia went out of business." Hello and welcome to the Jumpstart Podcast with Jeffalytics. I'm your host, Jeff Sauer. Today, for our 49th episode, it's going to be another Jeffisode. No guest, just me talking to you from this airport hotel in Milan. And I have a lot going on this week, and yes, I say that pretty much every week, but this truly is an eventful time for me. From a vacation standpoint or from a play standpoint, I flew in last night from the Azores, got into Milan at around 1 a.m., Now I have a flight to New York at about 1 p.m., and so I'm recording this during my little bit of downtime. Didn't even leave the airport this time. In New York, I'm going to be shooting 2 full days of videos for the Online Marketing Institute. Should be pretty fun. Going to go to dinner with a family member, and then the second I get done with the videos, I'm going to hop in a plane and fly to Portland, Oregon for a wedding. That should be really fun as well. It's at a winery, and I love wine, and I love these friends. And then finally, I get back to the promised land of Minnesota in early June, and I'm getting tired just thinking about all this. It's funny, but every week I tell myself, it's almost over. I'm almost done with all my things that I have committed to. And then every week I keep on chasing this false summit. It's just that there's always something coming up. Every time that I think that it's done, somebody asks me to do something else, and I hate saying no because it feels like once I say no, the well's going to dry up. So it's never over, even when I want it to be and even when I think it's going to be. But I do have this downtime, enough time to record a podcast for you, and so that's what we're going to do. For this podcast, I wanted to talk about content formats because I've been experimenting with quite a few different content formats lately, seeing which ones work. Actually, funny little anecdote, I recorded this intro and I realized at about this point that I wasn't recording audio, and so when you say experimenting, it truly is experimental. But I thought about talking about formats of content because I was wondering how I'm going to get everything done while I'm traveling in the next few weeks. How could I shoot a video? How could I do anything over this time when I'm occupied all the time? Now, it's easy to write something on the airplane during my 9-hour flight, but there's no way I could record audio on the flight or do any video. It just wouldn't be very good, and people would probably be pretty annoyed. Now, I can record audio from a quiet hotel room. Basically, I have like pillows surrounding my microphone as a sound barrier right now. Can do it in Airbnb just as long as it's quiet in the area. And this new microphone I have doesn't really pick up any background noise anyway. But producing a video, that takes planning. It takes weeks and weeks of planning. I actually spent about 2 weeks writing scripts for, actually more than 2 weeks. I'd say it took about 2 months, but it was 2 solid actual focused weeks to create scripts for my agency course videos. And then it took 2 or 3 days of recording to get those things to work. And then I had to reshoot them. So I was sitting in the garage of an Airbnb that we rented and just waiting for the light to hit me in the right way that I could record these videos. And then I learned that they were not very good, and so I had to re-record them again. And these were it was about an hour of video total, and it took me about way too many productive hours, probably 160 hours to get an hour of video. That's just of my time. And then when you add in my team's time, it was just ridiculous. Anyways, I don't want to talk about that anymore because it's like pouring salt on old wounds. But video is authentic. People can look into your eyes. It really does feel like they're connecting with you more than other mediums. So producing video is a pain in the butt, but it can be really effective. Anyway, so I was just thinking about the relationships that I can build with people and getting comments and just getting, cutting through the noise in the content world. And that's what I wanted to do here, is talk about the different ways you can reach people and when you should use each format, each medium, or each way to deliver your message. So I thought it would be a good idea on this podcast to talk about the various formats you can publish and how you can achieve results with each of those. Say that you have an idea in your head and you want to get it out to your audience, or you want to build an audience with your idea. You want to say something either unique or you have a different spin on something that's been out there for a long time. How do you get that to work? How do you do that? Well, let's talk about it. We're going to call this the 10 ways to produce content, and I'm going to share my thoughts and experiences on each of those. So one thought, we already talked about a little bit, is producing videos. And videos are awesome. People, we always hear about people producing videos do so well, and content on video is important. But most people don't actually execute it because it takes so much time. It takes about 5 days to prepare for a half day of shooting, and then another 5 to 10 days to put it together and edit it. It's exhausting. when I produced those videos in March, they didn't really do that well. The engagement numbers were pretty terrible. And so just to give you an idea as to how the engagement numbers work is, say that for every 1,000 people that you notified about the video, in this case through in my email list, you'd get maybe 20 to 30% would click through to a video landing page. And of those, let's say 50% started the video. And then of those, about 25% watched the whole video. And so if you send an email with, hey, link to my newest video to 1,000 people, you're looking at about 38 people or so that are going to watch the entire video. And depending on how the video is, yes, they can scan through it. They can do all kinds of, ways to watch part of the video and get the gist of it. But if your video requires them to watch to the end, that's a pretty small percentage, right? That's 3.8% conversion rate on getting them to watch a whole video. And that, my friends, is not really worth the effort if you're going to get those types of response rates, unless you just make it up as a volume play. It's not worth going on a diet to look good on camera, putting on makeup, getting a haircut, putting on big boy pants. It's not worth that type of stuff unless you have a studio set up, or unless you can find a way to produce that much more quickly and efficiently. And the funny thing is that if you're not used to being on camera, if you only do this every so often, you're not going to look very good. So you need to really practice it and get better and more comfortable being on camera in order for it to be effective. So cutting through the process of, just cutting through the whole video BS and getting good at video has a huge payoff, but it's a huge ramp to get to that point. You can start a podcast and be decent right away. You can start writing and be decent. Although both of those things, which we'll talk about, writing and audio and all that stuff, you're pretty terrible for your first several times too. So no matter what medium you want to deliver your message, you're going to be terrible at it. And so you might as well get started, or at least try something if you think that's the future. If you think that's something that, that works out well for you. Because video can work well. I subscribe to several video channels, and I look forward to them every week or every day, however frequently they post. You have YouTube channels that you can subscribe to and people get notified. You can subscribe through RSS. Other people start to think about your videos and then share them on their sites. It's a lot easier to share somebody's video. You can embed a video. You can't embed a blog post. You can embed a audio file, I guess, but that rarely happens. I never see people embedding somebody else's podcast unless it's about them. But videos, people embed them all the time. There's a lot of blogs that I subscribe to that are just taking other people's content and then writing a reaction to it. So video is a good medium for that. It gets shared often. And when you get good at it and you have something that's unique, then you're going to cut through things. Maybe you'll get better than a 3.8% response rate. But then again, you think about like Casey Neistat, who's somebody that I follow right now. He's at right around 7 million subscribers. Each video that he produces, when I look at his stats on YouTube, which the stats on YouTube are really solid, the number of views and subscribers and stuff like that, you can see it. Anybody can see it. He's at about 1 to 1.5 million views on each video, just any standard video that he does out of 7 million subscribers. So he's at a pretty nice clip. Now, not everybody who watches the video is a subscriber, but when you think about it, he's in the just doing the math in my head, which is actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. It's about 15% of the people will watch his video. So even one of the most popular video bloggers in the world gets 15%. Another person who I think is doing really well with video from a business standpoint is Julian at Measure School. I really, really enjoy Julian's content. He produces a video each week. He does a newsletter. He has, I subscribe to his channel. He has over 10,000 subscribers. And it seems like he embraced the one video per week and just made it a point to do it. And it's really working out well for him. So you see me, who I was publishing a YouTube video once a week for about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. This is back in 2016, and then I haven't done much since then. Or I was, experimenting with short clips, long clips. And it was hard to find an audience that was consistent with that. And so I think a lot of it is that you see these people with 10,000 or 7 million subscribers, and what it comes down to is they're consistently delivering at a format. And so if you want to do video, again, just be bad at it for a while, and nobody's going to care because, and I think I talked about this in the last episode, but nobody's going to be subscribed to you anyway. If you have 5 subscribers, it doesn't matter if you're bad. If you have 7 million subscribers, yes, you want to be good, but you don't get to 7 million subscribers unless you're good. So you become good when you get to 7 million, and you get 7 million because you're good. So those two things are, correlated metrics if you think about it. And just like I said, video, you can see play rate, pause rate, click through. You can see all kinds of metrics on video. So I really like video from a shareability and a metric standpoint. And I love looking at video metrics. It's really nice. Now contrast that with audio, like podcasts. Obviously, you're listening to my podcast, so you're an audio person. Now, why do you like audio over video? Probably because you're in your car or you're running or, you're doing something that warrants audio and you just want to listen to something. You don't want to watch video. You probably have your video people and your audio people, but you might not subscribe to videos, or maybe you do. I'd like to hear a comment about your behavior just to see how you do this, how you utilize things. But I listen to podcasts on the airplane because I can download them and I can listen to them without having to worry about streaming or anything. I like them when I'm alone. I like it when I'm waiting at a baggage claim. I like it when I'm running. I like it in the car. There's just a lot of times where you want noise, but you don't. Maybe you're sick of your music. Audio is perfect for that. Now, audio is interesting because I could simply just read a script from an article that I wrote or the script of the video, and that could be a podcast. I could just do some outlines and some notes like I have right now and make a podcast. There's a lot of different ways you can do audio, but I do feel like audio is more personal than a blog post. And so, for example, one of the things I'm experimenting with from a podcasting audio perspective is I'm writing these little essays, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I'm writing some essays about agency and business ownership, and I'm going to put them on a different website separately, and I'm going to make a podcast feed. And it'll be interesting to see how many people want to, how many blog posts are viewed versus how many people are listening to the podcast. The content's going to be the exact same. I'm actually just going to read the blog post in audiobook format or podcast format. So that's a little experimentation I'm doing and just seeing how it works. And it's probably going to take me 5 to 10 minutes to record each episode because I've already written the script. And so it's really just repurposing content. So there's podcasting as a primary, which is like my interview show. That's a primary source of content where I'm interviewing somebody. There's podcasting like this, just man with a microphone type stuff. And there's repurposing old content. I think there's a lot of different ways you can use audio. And I'll be curious to see how it plays out in the end, but I like this format a lot, and that's why I'm doing the podcast right now instead of making a video. I don't think a video would really turn out with me doing this topic. It's just too long. And so, this is just me thinking out loud as to which one of these things should we do, when should you do them, and how does it work. But you could basically take the same script, put it on video, audio, and as a blog post, and you could reach completely different audiences, and they're going to have different relationships with you as a result of it. And so I don't know, that's pretty cool. Now, one thing I don't like about podcasts is that the metrics are terrible, just terrible. Like I can tell if you downloaded it and how many times it was uniquely downloaded by, actually I don't even know what unique means, but that's about it. I can't tell if you played it, if you liked certain parts. The reason why people ask you for comments on podcasts all the time or to go to the website is because at least they know that somebody's engaged with it. If somebody cites something within the podcast, then you know that they're engaged with it. And so that's the reason why I have a call to action in my podcast and why others do as well. Now, I should have put in here, introduce a call to action for people to tell me that they're listening to this, but I didn't. And so I have to think of something now, and I'm actually decent at improvising, but not right now. Let's see here. If you are listening to this podcast, send me a tweet or a comment and say, hey, Jeff, I thought that Alitalia went out of business because they're supposed to go out of business. And then that means that you listen to this. I don't know. I'm actually done with my flight at this point in time when this is published. So it's not going to affect my flight. But if you're listening, if this isn't too stupid and my editor doesn't cut this out, then yeah, just tell me, hey, I thought they went out of business. And then I'll know that you listened to this. That's a deep, deep podcast cut. See, now I'll know if you listen to it. If you don't tweet me, then I'll just assume that you don't. So if I only get one tweet, that means I have one listener of this podcast. Although I do get some comments from people, so I do appreciate that. Obviously, comments really help me understand because the download numbers are iffy at best. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about some written content. Now, obviously, talking about video scripts and podcast scripts that you could read off of, you could just take the script from your video or your audio and drop it into a blog post, put it out there. Let's talk about short blog posts first, things that are 600 words or less, just like a little anecdote or something that doesn't have much depth, but it's just put out there. I might call it an essay. Depends on, there's so many guidelines for blog posts, but I think if you're doing just a quick hitter, 600 words, 5 minutes of audio, that's one way you can get the message out there. Now, I think that this is what they say that they want. People say that they want 600 words. They just want quick business emails. Just get to the information. Don't do anything special. Just get to it. But I find that these posts, even though people say that that's what they want, I don't see a lot of engagement. I don't see a lot of shares. It's just like, what's the point? Like, you can't really get your point across in too few words. So you see these quick hitting blog posts and then nobody goes to them. And so I just don't know what the value is in doing that and publishing that type of content if you don't have a plan or an idea as to who is the target you're going after and whether they're going to share it or not. So yes, you can do quick hitting blog posts, but I research a lot of companies, a lot of agencies, just look at their blogs and read a post. And I'm like, what's the point? Why did you do this? Why did you think this is necessary? You don't give any new information. You don't really add a lot of value. And so I'm not sure if this is a good medium. Now, what I'm experimenting now with is doing quick hitting valuable information in 600 words or 1,000 words, or whatever it is. And then I'm sending it to people in the body of an email. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that might be I'm getting more engagement when I put the entire thing into the email and ask for comments than I might if I say, go to my website and read it. So I'm trying to bring the content to the customer and see how that works. For blog posts, I'm undecided on the effectiveness of that. But we'll get to ways to repurpose it in just a minute here. Now, number 4 is Megablog posts. These are things that are 2,000 plus words that cover a bunch of topics, maybe a skyscraper post in the Brian Dean world of things, but basically just huge posts that you put out there that are meant to be comprehensive and an end-all be-all for a topic. And these ones are a pain to produce. It can take 20, 40, 60, 120 hours, whatever it is, but they can pay huge dividends. Now, I found that my most popular blog posts, things that get thousands of visitors a month from search, are these mega blog posts. So it's painful to create them, takes a lot of work, but they bring in all the search traffic. And so they're not always, sometimes they'll get shares if you promote it. I think that if you're putting 60 hours into creating something, you need to put a lot of hours into promoting it as well and getting the name out there. But even that promotion, it's just a short-term piece, but the long-term value really comes from the search traffic. So these mega posts, taking several of your 600-word posts and making it into a mega post probably is going to do better in search engines than putting it out there in 4 different forms. So is that one thing you can do is to take your little ones. One thing I've told people is you can write 600 words a day. It's not that hard. And then at the end of the week, you have 3,000 words. And at the end of the month, you have 12,000 words. Now, if you prune that down into a 2,000 word post or something like that, then you're going to you might have something that's pretty good. And so if you put a bunch of stuff out there just in the habit of smaller things and then you consolidate it, you might have something really good. Now, writing is crazy, but I wrote 31,000 words for my script for the Online Marketing Institute in like a month. That's basically, I wrote a book in a month, and you can do anything if you put your mind to it. You just really need to have a format and just give yourself a deadline. Now that's how I've always worked in general, is like, hey, here's the format, here's the deadline, write something, prune it down. I think that really works out well. But the problem is that most people, when it's like creating a mega blog post, who's pushing you? Is it yourself? Is it your company? Usually people don't have enough drive or push to do it, and so they don't do it. And so I say to myself always, the reason why people come to your site, the reason why you get all these leads and inquiries on your web form is because you wrote more of these things. But the problem is, it's easy to say, well, I already did a few of them and they're doing well. Why do I need more? I'm already overwhelmed with how many leads I get. Or there's a million reasons why you might want not do this, but the reality is that you should do it because the results are fantastic. The single best traffic source in the world is still Google search, especially about business. If it's business to business or something that's not viral potential like you might have with Facebook posts or social posts, Google search is the way to go. And the format that works universally is these Megablog posts. So these things are correlated heavily. So we should be doing it. But again, there's no deadline to do something that's just creating your own content. Okay, moving on. Number 5, email teasers. And this is where you write content somewhere, whether it's a podcast, a video, a blog post, a Megablog post. You basically, every time that you put something out there, you email your mailing list and tell them that it's out there. Now, Paul Cox, my friend from Online Metrics, does a really good job with this. Is every time he writes a blog post, he teases it or puts a link to it and then an introduction to what the content is about and how much work he put into it, and he pushes it out to his mailing list. And I click through on almost every one of those, even though I subscribe to him in RSS. I get to his posts every single time because he puts it out there and he always produces good content. And everything's personal. It's not like an RSS automation where it's like, hey, check out my latest post. Those get annoying. But he talks about the effort that he put into it and why it's important. And that just sets the stage for why you should listen to it. And so he does a great job. And I think I can tell he gets really good engagement. Thrive Themes does this as well. Thrive Themes is a website framework that I love. I'm pretty much all in on Thrive, the Thrive Content Builder and Thrive Leads and a bunch of their different platforms right now. Thrive does an amazing job at driving you to their blog posts. There's other ones that do it as well. It's more of a frequency thing for me than anything, is that if you do it once a week, I will read your email. If you send it more than once a week, then I will just automatically throw it into a folder and I'll never see it again. And so that's just an example of how you can get people to go to your content. Is if you write one thing a week, that's all that I have time for. If you do it more than that or less than that, then it won't really hit me as well. So do a good job of teasing your content if it's a weekly content in a business to business setting, and you'll go from there. Now I'm experimenting with number 6, which is full-bodied emails, where you put the entire message into the email. And I'm just going to do that for a while and see how it works. Now, one thing I've noticed is that if somebody sends me a note in an email, like a whole essay, I'll read the whole thing. I read almost like all the words on all the emails that I get because I'm stupid, I guess you could say, or inefficient. But I just feel like somebody can read on their phone a post, whereas making them go to my blog and then having a pop-up in there and all that crap that we do on our blogs, it's not going to have the same effect. And so people will read if they see the email and engage with it. I'm just making that assumption because that's my behavior. And then hopefully if they like it, they'll click through or they'll save the email. They'll just keep it handy. And so that's something I'm experimenting with now. Eventually I'm going to experiment with calls to action in addition to comment, to call to action to purchase or learn more about the products that I'm selling in that area. But I'll keep on you with how full-bodied emails are working. But I feel like less email with more substance is the best way to do email. And so I send out a lot of emails. I just did a promotion with AppSumo, and people were signing up for my PPC course, and they were signing up for my agency workshop, which is a free workshop, and they were signing up for my analytics course all within like a week. And I was sending them like 800 emails, not 800, but I was sending them about, one person was like, Jeff, I haven't even watched the video yet, and you've sent me 5 or 6 emails. I feel like you're putting too much pressure on me. And I agree with that. Yeah, if you get 5 emails and you haven't even watched a video, then the 6th email and the 7th email are going to be like, I need to unsubscribe from him so I can get unburied. But the reality is that they signed up for all those things, and how else am I supposed to deliver it? So I can't really change things too much. But what I did is I moved the frequency of my PPC, analytics, and agency course emails from daily to weekly. And I feel like it does a lot better job of saying, here's what your week's going to look like with this course, not necessarily here's what you need to do every day. And actually for my agency course, I've changed the email frequency to be even less than that, because I noticed that by about week 5 or 6, people were getting overwhelmed and falling behind. And so I pushed out the expectation for when they'd watch things until few weeks later, so they had more time to deliberate, more time to work on things. And that seemed to work pretty well. And so my email summary is fewer emails with more substance. Number 7, reposting or posting natively to Medium, medium.com. I've only done really reposting to Medium, but I know some people who are using that as their main blog source. I think that there's some discovery tools in Medium that are nice, but only if you write about stuff that's like not business to business. I found that Medium doesn't really work well for business to business unless you're the one promoting it. So the discovery tools within Medium haven't really worked well for me to drive new readers. In general, I like how it looks and I like the features and all that stuff, but I don't engage with it very well. I don't really like the format from a reader standpoint, other than just the cleanliness of it. And I haven't really noticed a lot of new followers or anything. So what I do is I just republish my content there. Now, you could look at that and say, Jeff, well, the reason why you're not getting new followers is because you're not fitting the format, right? You're taking your old stuff or your existing stuff and republishing. You're doing it wrong. That probably is true. So if you have comments on how to do it right, let me know. But otherwise, I just like to own my content. I like to have it go on my blog first and then have Medium reference it, because I like to own my own content. That's really what it comes down to for me is owning it. I'll rent your platform to see if I can get eyeballs, but that's really how I look at the platform as a traffic sharing service where they get more page views, they can get their advertising dollars, however they make money, they can get happier users, but they also need to drive more awareness to me. And so that's an arrangement in my mind. So why would I go native to there if they're not even delivering on what they're supposed to be delivering on? Same with number 8, LinkedIn Pulse. So I found that people publish a lot to LinkedIn, and I had one post go viral, and it wasn't even my best post or anything, but it basically had 10,000 views, which I consider viral because every other one is like 1,000 views or whatever. But LinkedIn Pulse is an interesting area to publish content. I mean, I just think, again, just like Medium, it's just repurposing existing content. I'm not sure that I'd write something exclusively for LinkedIn unless I didn't have a blog, but there might be a reason why you make that your primary. Maybe they favor things that are primarily from LinkedIn or something. They promote them better. I'm not sure, but it's a way to get your content out there, but it's more of a medium for republishing. Now, notice how all these things, we're already at number 8, but 1 through 8 are all the same idea, and it's just where do you put it? How do you get people to notice this thing? So we're getting more even to promotion here. The first 4 points were what type of format do you publish things, and then now we're talking how do you promote it? And continuing with that, like number 9, can you do the whole inspirational quote on a lifestyle picture or some kind of picture and put it out to social media? Can you put it out to Pinterest? Can you put it out to these different formats and see how things work? Are they getting discovered? Are people liking it? I find that Twitter doesn't really do much anymore. It's just people have sort of left it or tuned out of it. Google Plus doesn't do much anymore, but maybe if you're a certain type of site, Pinterest would work well. Maybe Facebook would work well if you have a good group of people following you. There's all kinds of different ways that you can do this and try experimenting with ways to get your posts out there. I have not succeeded extremely well, so I'm not going to be able to tell you the exact tactics on doing it, but I've seen people succeed with taking excerpts from their posts or whatever, repurposing it as just quotes or like a small piece of it, and then having people share that, like basically an image with text on it, and getting it shared to social media, which overall ups the value and ups the sharing of your content. But it just seems overall that social sharing is more and more difficult. And it's because there's just so much of it and so much going on. And then I think number 10 is just paying to promote your posts. So you can boost your post on Facebook. You can use Google search to drive people, paid search. You can paid inclusion on StumbleUpon. You can pay to submit something to Reddit. There's all kinds of different ways you can pay to promote your posts and get them out there. And I think that it's something that people don't do very often because they think that if it's such good content, if they put 40 or 60 hours into it, it should just stand on its own. But as we all probably know, that's not the case. And so I don't really utilize paid content as much as I should, but I'm definitely interested in starting to do that more. It's more of just a time thing, and that is trying to produce as much content without having a dedicated promotion person or a dedicated person to look at the campaigns. I just worry that it's good money at a good idea, but having bad results. And so I am going to hopefully get better at paid promotion myself in the near future. But I think that's an unwritten thing that people get results from paid promotion, but nobody really talks about it because everybody is so interested in that free traffic. But remember, if you're producing this content, you're doing it for a reason. The reason is almost always to generate more business, more customers, whatever it is, and that will get you revenue, and that the advertising that goes into it is usually a drop in the bucket compared to the revenue potential, and that's why you're doing it. So free shouldn't be the only concern here. And I have a bonus one. This is a -1. So if you want to go on the negative list, waiting until you have the perfect idea and the perfect format, or just waiting on doing all this stuff because you will never have the right camera, or you'll never have the right microphone. It's never going to happen. You're never going to have a perfect situation. You're never going to have the perfect ability. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. So you might as well just stop thinking that right now and just put something out there and just try something. It's going to be bad. And so you just got to get over that concern about it being bad, because it will be. And if it's not bad, then awesome. Then you solved the puzzle. You did a good job. From this podcast, from the Jumpstart podcast, I remember interviewing Ollie Gardner, and he's like, yeah, my first post went viral and put me on the map. I think that another one who did that, I think it was Mike King or somebody in the first 10 episodes did the same thing. They're just like, hey, I just created an awesome blog post, and it was the most important thing I ever did, and it went viral, and that's how I got put on the map. So it is possible. Mine wasn't that way. I probably wrote 1,000 posts before anything was noticed, and it took me across 4 different domain names, but eventually it gets there. And so there's a lot of different approaches to doing the same thing. There's a lot of different approaches to delivering the same content, as we talked about in this podcast episode. And there's really no right or wrong way to do it. Hopefully me talking about the things that I've tried and what I've observed, and even giving a few little examples here of people who I admire who are doing this, gave you some ideas as to how you can do this yourself. No matter where you are, I would love to hear from you, just because remember, we talked about it in point number 2, is that podcast metrics are terrible. So it's always nice to hear from my listeners. And that's it for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed this Jeffisode, and we look forward to talking to you soon.